Hi friends! Hello! Hi, how are you? I hope you guys are having an amazing day today. Hello and welcome to Glowmas. Hi. So today's video, we're gonna be doing a Yass or pause. So today's video, we are going to be going through new makeup releases and just kind of talking about our opinions. I feel like the holiday season is always a really fun time to do these types of videos just because there are so many new releases, and I also love it because after Christmas all of this stuff goes on sale. But today I decided we would just go through new releases, kind of talk about the new products that have come out, give our opinions, and yeah. Hope you guys like this video. Okay, first, this is so funny because I actually I filmed a video and it's posted talking about the Benefit Professional and how Benefit just like never comes out with anything interesting and how they just like keep reusing the same concepts over and over and over again. And I was just like laughing because somebody tagged me in this and they literally have now come out with the Professional Super Setter, which looks to be a setting spray. It seems like you can buy it in a full size and a mini size. One thing I do like about Benefit is I do like that they make so many minis. I do. I like the option of a mini, especially with their box of powders, like their blushes and bronzers and highlighters, because they're so much product and the big ones are like ridiculously big. I would always recommend if you're getting one of the box of powders to just get a mini because it takes forever even to just get through that. Anyway, so again, Benefit kind of going along with, they're not really coming up with new themes, they're just creating new products based on old themes. I will say I'm not going to buy, number one, I'm not going to buy this, but I'm not going to buy this because I personally think setting sprays are a scam. Like that's my personal opinion. I understand that a lot of people really like setting sprays, that they feel like they're necessary in the makeup application. Like that's fine. Regardless, I know that there's again, I hate to keep saying this, but like if you are going to buy a setting spray, there are so many affordable ones that are good, that work really well. I just don't understand spending, how much is this? Probably $30. The mini is available now for $15, so I'm assuming the full size is going to be around $30. I just don't, is only the mini available right now? That's a weird way to launch. Anyway, I just don't understand why you would need to buy one that is this expensive like now. You know what I mean? Next, okay, here's the thing. So this is the Wine and Only palette from Colourpop. They came out with a whole wine themed collection. I am on the Colourpop PR list and I kind of hope I don't get this. If I get this, I'm going to do a giveaway with it because I don't want this palette. My friend, I have a group chat with my friends and we were talking about this palette in particular, and my friend made such a good point that it was just like, there are so many interesting things you could do with a wine themed collection other than like rosé wine. Like you could have like a cool like greeny yellow color for a white wine. You could have a cool off-white color. You could have like a dark deep Merlot color. Like you could, I don't drink anymore, but when I did drink, I was a huge wine head. Like I absolutely loved wine. So this could have been really cool and had some really cool colors to it, had a really cool theme if they actually wanted to do something other than a rosé themed palette. Why is it when brands do wine collections, they act like only rosé is the only kind of wine they can draw inspiration from? I think it was Tarte did this too, where they did like a wine. Anyway, they've made this palette like 10 times over already. I really don't see the point of putting out these random, this is the stuff from Colourpop that annoys me because they do have really good products and they have a good formula, but this type of stuff is just so like half-assed and random and thrown out there, and it's like, why? Why? You put out something new every day. Why can't you do every other day instead? Why? I just think this was so stupid. Okay, this I'm excited about and this I'm absolutely buying. Fenty Beauty is coming out with powder foundations. I'm very excited about this. I normally, if I use a powder foundation, it's to like set down and provide more coverage to a liquid foundation. So I rarely use powder foundation on its own. That's just not how I utilize it, but I'm very interested in this. I love, first of all, I always will love Fenty's shade range. I so appreciate their inclusivity, and I think, again, this does a really good job from fair to deep. I feel like it's a pretty good spectrum. I'm very interested to see the formula of this. Their loose setting powder is one of my all-time favorite powders ever, and I tend to really like their foundations. I wasn't a huge fan of the dewy one, but I did like the more matte foundation. So frankly, I'm really excited about this. I'm going to try it. Normally, I don't like to spend a lot of money on powder compact products because I go through them so quickly. However, I want to try this really bad. So I probably will spend the money, even though it's $36, which again, it's a lot, but especially if this provides a really good level of coverage and I could use it as like an actual foundation instead of just a powder to like set down foundation, I think that would be cool. So I think I want to know how much coverage it actually provides. Does it say in the little thing here? Long wear, light as air, no flashback. Buildable, light to full coverage. Oh, so you could do full coverage. This will be interesting. I want to try this basically. Moral of the story. When I saw this on Twitter, I was very, very excited about this. I think it's a really fun release. Now, Storybook Cosmetics is coming out with a palette that, here's the thing. Okay, first of all, I want to say, I think the palette's beautiful. It's based on A Starry Night from Vincent van Gogh. When I talk about on this channel, like, I wish brands would take a concept and like fully commit and really like go in with it. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Like, they had a concept, they had an idea and a vision, and they fully committed to it. And for that reason, like, I love this palette objectively. Like, I think it's beautiful. I do wish those two blues in the top kind of row had just a little bit more variation. Maybe they do in person. I think photographing this on a blue backdrop wasn't really the move. Kind of wish I had a photograph on a white backdrop just because I think it would have popped more, but that's being nitpicky. My whole thing is, think about Storybook Cosmetics, because I've had a couple of their palettes. I had the Burn Book and I had the Harry Potter palette. Quite honestly, they're beautiful and they are so good at coming up with a concept and executing it. Like, they really are with their palettes. But the reality for me was I just didn't really reach for the palettes. Because I had them as displays. Like, I used those palettes because they were adorable and I liked looking at them. But the formula, while it wasn't bad, it wasn't anything sort of groundbreaking. And I think it's important to note that, like, if you're going to buy one of these palettes, you're buying it because the concept is so amazing. Not necessarily because it's going to be your most utilized or used palette. I feel like Storybook Cosmetics caters to the people who are very like nostalgic about makeup or are collectors of makeup, and I don't think that's a problem. Like, I think that's totally fine. But for me, I noticed that buying those palettes were a little bit of a waste of money because I never really reached for them. I just liked the idea and how they look. So while I think this is beautiful, I think it's beautifully executed, I think it's beautifully done, just from my experience having those palettes in the past, I know I probably wouldn't reach for this too often. But I will say that their formula is decent. Not the best I've ever tried, but decent. So if you are like big onto this and you think it's going to look beautiful and you think you're going to use it, I would say go for it. It's just not something I know I would use. Does that make sense? Did Colourpop come out with other things? What is the Big Poppy palette? What the f? What are they doing? Whatever. Okay. I don't even want to talk about this. The Big Poppy palette. I didn't even see this. Okay. Well, I don't like it. That's that on that. Next. I did buy one of these, really just because I'm very curious. This piqued my interest, I have to say. Fenty is coming out with lip creams. I'm so curious about what this is going to be. I believe I bought that like universal rosy nude shade just because I knew that was a color I'd probably use. I am so curious about this. I really like the Fenty Gloss Balm formula. I do find that sometimes it can get a little bit stringy if you use too much, so you have to use it kind of sparingly, but I really do like that formula. I think it looks beautiful. I love the huge applicator. Like, I like everything about that. So when I saw that they were coming out with more lip products and it's specifically a lip cream, I was super interested. It's described as a medium to full coverage color with no shimmer but a high shine. What I am hoping this isn't like is the Too Faced liquid latex things. I know some people really like those, and that's totally, I didn't say candle of the day. The candle of the day is Frosted Coconut Snowball. Okay, it's Frosted Coconut Snowball. I'm so sorry. One of my other new Bath & Body Works candles. I'm so sorry. Anyway, I'm really hoping that it's not like the Too Faced liquid latex. I hated those. They were sticky. They were a mess, especially for somebody with small lips. It got everywhere. Like, it never lasted throughout the day properly. Really strongly disliked those. So I am really hopeful it's not like that. I'm hoping it's less of a super tacky and sticky feel and more of a almost like kind of like a lip oil but with more pigment. That's what I'm envisioning this to be. A lip oil with more pigment. I bought one. I want to try it. But I will say, to Fenty's credit, like, this is definitely something that like is interesting. Like, I don't see a lot of brands putting out products like this. I think it's an interesting concept. And I also think they picked a decent sort of color range, especially for a first launch. Like, you kind of have the red, there's that really light, pretty, you know, pink color, there's some deeper shades. Like, I think overall it's a solid launch, an interesting idea. I just hope the formula doesn't suck. There's nothing to really compare this to in my brain other than those liquid latexes, which were so bad. So I'm really hoping that this is not like that. I'm not going to buy this. if I buy this, I need everybody to bully me because I don't need this, especially if I'm gonna buy the Fenty like powder foundation. But Jouer just has my heart in the sense that their packaging, it's like they picked my brain on what my dream ideal makeup packaging is, and then they put it in all of their makeup. Like, they're coming out with a new sort of setting powder, and it's expensive. It's $28, which again, like I said, I go through setting powder so quickly, and my favorite one that's been my favorite for years is the Rimmel Stay Matte, and that's $5. So it's not a pretty packaging, but it's $5, and it's an amazing powder, and I go through it like crazy, but I can just rebuy it because it's $5. The thing about buying expensive like powders like this, like the press setting powders, is that if you love them, it's great, but then you're screwed when you have to rebuy it. And if you don't like it, then you've just wasted your money on an expensive setting powder. I don't want to buy this so badly because I'm like, oh, I need a good new compact setting powder. Like, I have a bunch. I don't need any more of these. The reason I want to buy it is because it's beautiful. It looks luxurious. It looks beautiful. It looks so like sleek. The embossing on it is beautiful. The outer packaging is beautiful. Like, that's the reason I want to buy this, is because I think it just looks beautiful. However, logically, let's get some logic in. I know realistically that I'm going to ruin that embossing after using it. That's the whole point. You would ruin the embossing. While the packaging is beautiful, I don't need it. You can get these types of pressed powders for so much cheaper, especially if it's not having any sort of coverage or anything like that. If it's just a pressed powder, I don't need it for $28. But like, gosh, is this beautiful. Jouer does such a good job at making beautiful, aesthetically pleasing packaging. Like, they really, really crush it with the packaging, I have to say. If I ever were to make a makeup brand, it would have like Jouer and Patrick Ta all combined. Like, that would be my makeup brand, with maybe a little bit of Tom Ford. Oh, I forgot about these. Let's talk about the Nikita Dragun palettes. These are $30 each, which by just right off the bat, that price point is ridiculous. I really disagree with the price point for what you're actually getting here. Again, I can't get over the fact that I just feel like all of her makeup looks so Claire's-like. I appreciate that this time with her whole packaging, she went with a cartoonized version of herself versus that face palette that I talked about in one of my videos recently that was just like horrifying. I appreciate that she did like a more cartoonized version of herself, because I think this is actually kind of like a fun concept, and it still has that sort of like Nikita extraness that she wants. I've been really drawn to smaller palettes lately. I love like a good 6-pan. So in theory, I was like, okay, I like that they're smaller palettes. I feel like that's a little bit more trendy. But the reality is the color scheme on these, and also the shape of the pans, irrationally annoys me. The shape of the pans being eggs, I get that they're supposed to be dragon eggs. I don't like it. Like, just personal opinion, I do not like it. I don't think it looks cool or interesting. These color stories aren't horrible. I'm not gonna lie. I think the blue and brown one is pretty bad. I think that's a really not great color story. I can't see a ton of cohesive looks being made with that blue and brown, especially having such a pukey brown put in with those cool tones. Like, it just doesn't mesh in my brain. I wish she had really played into just making them monochromatic and making one an all blue green and making the other one an all purple. Just because if you're gonna make small palettes like that, I don't really understand the point of having like a transition shade, because it's like, unless you're trying to make an everyday palette, but I don't understand the having a bunch of neutrals and then like pops of color. I don't understand that as much. I think overall, had she really just played into the sort of monochromatic vibe, I think it would have been a lot better. And I also just think in general, her makeup always looks children-y to me, and I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's the shape of the thing being eggs. I don't fully know, but I think just in general, not only do I not like the color stories, not only do I not like the packaging, I think the price point is just ridiculously high. I do want to quickly talk about the My Chemical Romance palette, because I don't want this, but I have never seen so many people be so mad about a launch. Basically, HipDot decided to collaborate and do a like My Chemical Romance themed palette. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know if this is gonna get me canceled because I'm lame, but I could not tell you a My Chemical Romance song. Like, I quite literally don't think I could tell you one song they sing. Okay, wait, hold on. I can't be this lame that I've like never... Hold on. What is their most popular song? Okay, let's see. What is their most popular song? Oh! Okay, I know their two most popular songs, but I didn't know who they were. So I know Welcome to the Black Parade and I know Teenagers. So I'm not as lame as I thought. However, I wasn't interested in this because I'm like a My Chemical Romance fan. I also, low-key, I'm not gonna lie, I don't actually like the color story of this very much. I guess if I was a My Chemical Romance fan, maybe I would. But I think the color story itself is actually pretty boring. It's just like reds and blacks and browns. Like, it's just kind of a cool toned palette with a pop of red. So I'm not incredibly enticed by the palette itself, but I get it. Like, if you're a huge My Chemical Romance fan, but I know that this launch was so messy. They didn't announce when the palette actually dropped, so nobody really knew when to go on and get it. It was never fully listed on their website, so unless you searched it, I know my friend Lacey got one, but unless you searched it, you couldn't find it. And now I'm hearing that this was actually a pre-order and that you weren't going to actually be getting it until like March, which a lot of people didn't know when they purchased the palette, that it was a pre-order for like 6 months from now. So overall, I think the launch was incredibly messy, and frankly, I think that the palette is kind of boring. So I didn't really get the hype around to this. But again, like, if it was a Taylor Swift palette and it was just neutrals and golds, I would be freaking out and wanting to buy it. So I understand the want to buy it for like your band, a band that you love. But for me personally, I was just like, I could care less about this. Like, I have no idea. Physicians Formula. I have to say, this is like the first time in a long time I've actually been very, very excited about a Physicians Formula release. They're coming out with their version of the putty primer, and they're also coming out with a setting spray. As I just said, not a big fan of setting sprays, like probably wouldn't buy that, but the putty primer, I'm very interested in it. Have to be honest, one of the big reasons I'm so interested is because I am positive that this is going to be the best smelling primer I have ever had in my entire life. Physicians Formula, to their credit, they make the best smelling products like on the map. Like, if we were doing an awards for makeup and we were going to talk about best scents, I think that Physicians Formula crushes it. The butter bronzer is like the best smelling product I've ever had. So number one, I know that it's going to smell really good. And number two, I'm actually just curious to try this. I love the Tatcha Silk Canvas Balm thing. Like, I think it's one of my favorite primers, but I have the e.l.f. Putty Primer as well, and I have to say it does a very good job. So I'm interested in this new sort of trend of having balm textured primers, just because until the Tatcha one, I hadn't really tried any. And now that other brands are kind of trying to duplicate that, I'm interested in trying the different formulas. This is also pretty affordable. Let me see how much it costs. It doesn't say how much it costs, but I know that Physicians Formula kind of falls in that weird drugstore pricing where their pricing is not, I don't think, crazy expensive, but it's also expensive for the drugstore. Like, the Physicians Formula butter bronzer is like $14, which for the drugstore is pretty expensive. So I'm gonna imagine this is gonna fall between like the $10 and $15 range, which, while not insane, is also definitely not cheap or, you know, hyper affordable. So I would be interested in trying this because I think the price point will be decent. It's gonna fall kind of in that middle range. I don't want the skin mist because I think it'll work. I just want to smell like coconuts. So I think I just need to buy like a coconut scented perfume and stop wasting my money on setting sprays that smell like coconuts, because I really play myself with that. So I just wanted that whole rant about setting sprays not working, but like, if it smells good, I'll pretend. Like, I'll pretend it works. I think we should just end kind of talking about this as well. So Sephora has recently announced that they are going to be moving in and pushing into Kohl's kind of across the country. And this comes very shortly after Ulta announced that they were going to be pushing into Targets, kind of the way that Sephora had done with JCPenney. Now, I think the main reason for this is because I think department stores, quite frankly, especially brick and mortar department stores as we know them, are kind of going to be going away in the next 10 years. It's just kind of a trend that we've been seeing where we've lost a lot of Sears, we've lost a lot of, what was that other one that recently closed down? Was it Bloomingdale's? We're losing department stores, basically. I think that Sephora is kind of realizing it's possible that having all of their sort of extra stores and those mini stores in a JCPenney might not be beneficial for them in a few years, because those stores might start closing down and they're going to be leaving malls, right? So I can understand why they thought this was a good move. In the makeup world, we always kind of have this never-ending debate of which one is better, right? Like Sephora or Ulta. And I have to say, I think Ulta is really winning right now. Despite Ulta maybe not carrying as many prestige brands, which is what I think keeps Sephora going, is they do have those like prestige brands, they have the luxury brands. Ulta is starting to kind of creep into that territory though. Like, they are starting to get more luxury brands, more affordable brands that are still really good. Like, they have Colourpop, which is a big kind of win for them. And also, I think their move of going into Target versus a Kohl's is just a trillion times better. Like, I personally, knowing that I could go to Target and I could get my Starbucks and I could walk around Target and then I could also go to a mini Ulta, yeah, I'll never leave. Like, yeah, that's a genius. Whereas with Sephora, I don't really go to Kohl's a lot anyway. It just kind of feels like another version of JCPenney, where the only reason I'd go is because I'm like, oh, well, Kohl's is closer to me than a mainstream Sephora. I just feel like, honestly, not that Sephora isn't doing well, because obviously they're doing well, but I just think that like they're not as in tune with what actual makeup consumers want the way that Ulta is. Because like Ulta's point system is a trillion times better. The fact that I can spend money and get all of this money back just by spending money, the fact that they always have like 10 times the points, you can always get samples, there's always free gifts with purchase. Like Ulta really crushes it with that, whereas Sephora really doesn't. They really don't. Their point system is trash. I think them moving into Kohl's is like, okay, but it's not the most update or hip, it's not like the most hip move of all time. And I think overall, if you have to pick one, it's like, I would pick Ulta, honestly. Like, I know there's kind of some stuff going on with them right now with the pandemic and everything, and it's the same thing with Sephora. But at the end of the day, like, if you have to pick one of the two, I think Ulta is winning that battle. I'm curious to know what you guys think about that, because I think it's really interesting. But anyway, I love you guys so much. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please like and subscribe, or just subscribe, or do neither. Honestly, just so happy you're watching me. Thank you so much for being here. My merch, including my Glomus merch, my social media, and everything I'm wearing on my face will be linked down below, along with links and information to the Georgia Senate runoff races that are happening on January 5th. Early voting has started. Get out there and vote, Georgia. We're counting on you. I love you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!